Welcome to Launch One with Mason Springer. I'm Mason Springer, and today we're joined with quite the archer. This is Gracen Fletcher. She's got lots of national titles in the women's pro class, other women's classes, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Gracen, you make it back from Vegas this year all right?
Yeah, just fine.
That's good. That's good. And you're from, is it Southern Indiana?
Yep, Southern Indiana, about 30 minutes from Evansville.
Yeah, so just for everybody listening, I met you a couple years ago now at least, and we've kind of become good friends with you and your family over the years. Kind of, I guess we run into each other at all the different shoots, and always fun to say hi. What was the first shoot that we met at? Do you remember what that was?
I think it was the Midwest Open a couple years back.
Yeah, that's right.
I sat by your dad and we just started talking, and then it went from there.
Yeah, and actually, I think I remember he was just getting into like habitat management for whitetail hunting. And is it your sister, your dad, who does all that for you guys?
Yeah, so mostly my sister. She does like a lot of the trail camera stuff, and we haven't done, well, actually, my brother and her, we put in a bunch of food plots and that kind of stuff. So that's how or actually me and your dad struck up a conversation. Just wanted to pick his brain, and he had some really interesting insights. So yeah, that's how we met, and we just, of course, went from there.
Yeah, that's good. I know he really gets into that habitat stuff now, and it's always fun to get out there. I love doing it too. But yeah, so I mean, your family. I know your dad. I had some great conversations with him at Vegas this year. He's a shooter, right? He shoots in Vegas, and I've been trying to get my dad to get back into shooting. He shot a couple years ago, and he'd come into the league nights every night. And then I guess he got really busy with work the last year, making some cool transitions. But how's your dad's schedule with shooting? Does he shoot every day, or how's that work?
He usually shoots about four or five times a week, depending on what his work schedule is. He typically, well, he doesn't really have a set schedule, so sometimes he'll work early morning to like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or sometimes it's like a 12 p to 9 p. So it's crazy, but he usually does try to get out to the garage and shoot for about an hour, about 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah, that's good. So at Vegas this year, and I want to get into some of this too, and then later on we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes of it. But I went to Vegas, you went to Vegas, and for anybody listening, if you don't know, Gracen won Vegas in 2025, which is awesome, right? The only one to shoot a 900 that year. Yeah, so that's a huge accomplishment. And if you've been listening to my stuff the last month on social media, my goal's been a 900, which someday I'll get there. But I just want to kind of go through a little bit of how Vegas went this year. We're recording this, several days afterwards. I mean, just kind of get your thoughts on it. I remember when I got there Wednesday, I was able to get a little bit of practice in before we shot. But when you get to a tournament, first of all, how early do you get there?
So this year we've done things a little bit differently. Of course, for indoor tournaments, it depends how far away we are. If we're close, we're just get there the day of. But for Vegas, we got then, and I believe it was Wednesday afternoon. So we try to get there a day or two early, just to make sure your bow's good, make sure everything gets in, and then just to let your body relax a little bit, get used to the surroundings. But for more ASAs, we started arriving like on Thursdays. That way we can make sure our bows are sighted in and all that good stuff. But for Vegas, yeah, we arrived on Wednesday just so we could relax that afternoon, get our bow set up, shoot a little bit, and not feel rushed.
Yeah, okay. And you're flying in, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of a newbie at flying. I've only done it a few times for bows, and I think the biggest thing for me is I'll hit the practice range, and I've always got a bear shaft, and I'm afraid that like at the airport they'll run your bow over or whatever. So I always go there and like I'll shoot a bear shaft just to make sure that it's somewhere close. Are you doing anything like that?
No, I don't, but as far as like bow security in the airport goes, I usually wrap a zip tie around my strings. That way I know if anybody's dry fired it or anything. So I just wrap that around. Then when I get to the location, I just cut it off. But yeah, I've heard horror stories of people arriving and open up their bow case and it being in their bow being in pieces, or their limbs are cracked, or crazy stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely
But
do not
yeah.
want that to happen.
Yeah, the zip tie, that's a great idea, actually. I'm gonna have to start doing that. I know I put an air tag in mine, and that always makes me feel a little bit more secure. I actually
Absolutely.
had my bow get lost on the way back from Vegas this year,
Gosh.
which is kind of crazy. I ended up getting it the next day though, so they're kind of quick about it. But yes, that was that was interesting. But so day one of Vegas, we're shooting, and when did you shoot? When is your day one? Is it Friday this year? Was that
Yeah, Friday.
everybody's or
Yep.
Friday? I think I remember. Am I remembering correctly? We shot Thursday last year.
We did. Yeah, that was kind of a pain too. Especially, I kind of feel sorry for the championship divisions that had to go to the shoot downs the next day. You have to wait an entire extra day that you don't know if you're even gonna make it. But yeah, we shot Friday, Saturday, Sunday this year.
Yeah. Okay. So your first round, how did that go? How did you feel about it?
The first round was the first round, man. When they blow that whistle, it is nerves galore. But this I actually wasn't as shaky as I thought I'd be. Sometimes, the first round you get up there and your body just starts shaking like crazy. But this time it wasn't bad. But yeah, that first round is always a little rough, but we made it through.
And for anybody listening that wasn't there, you walk into the Paris Ballroom, which is this, huge ballroom. You've got all the vendors on one half of it, and then, the shooters and the bales on the other half. And they had some like bleachers and different stuff set up this year. You walk in and you see this huge banner hanging above the targets, like this 20-foot banner with Gracen's face on it. I mean, what is it like shooting under that banner? And
It's
that's
a
got to be
little
some real pressure.
Yeah, it was a little awkward. I just tried not to look at it the whole time. Yeah, but especially, that first round, I won it last year, so there's always those expectations. So my goal was just, okay, just make it through the first couple rounds. All right, I'll be happy if I just do that. And so I did. But yeah, it's a lot of pressure and it's a little awkward. But yeah, cool
Yeah.
experience.
I know your dad was talking about trying to get one of those banners. Did you ever get a hold of anybody about that?
We haven't reached out yet.
Yeah, I know they auctioned them off probably a month or two after Vegas last year. You have to see if you can get one of those. I know Bodie's won it at least a couple times now, so he might let you guys get that one. But
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be cool. I'm not sure where we'd put it, but it'd be cool to have for sure.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, Vegas day one, pressure's kind of crazy, and I'll kind of give you a rundown of what I was thinking too. So, I do for the last couple like big tournaments, I'll do a series on Instagram, Facebook, and I guess I do all the social media stuff. And if you know me personally, like it's not really my personality, but I do it. It's fun. I think it helps me teach and or it helps me learn a lot. But I did a series, like I made a video just about every day called Chasing 900. And I basically just kind of showed what I was doing to get ready for Vegas this year. And it makes me, builds confidence, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Going into day one, I was feeling really good because I think that the work I put in on the social media side kind of equates to training. So I don't know how you feel, but when I like train a lot or put a lot more work in, the confidence just feels high and I feel really good on that first day. Is that kind of how you are?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
And so I went in the first day and I ended up shooting clean, just barely. But and you shot clean the first day too?
Yes, first 2 days.
Okay. And so I'll kind of help you diagnose me here. For the last month before Vegas, I wasn't shooting that good. And I'd never really had much of a slump in my shooting before. Like it's always been either, getting better or just like staying flat. It's never really gone downhill for more than a day or two. But it was downhill for the last month. Like I was not averaging 300, believe it or not. Like it was not good. Um, and I got to Vegas and I shot the first 300, which was, better than average for me. And it was like I would get back there and I kind of learned. I think I'm the king of making a surprise shot, like a truly surprise. Like I let it get back there and let it shake, do whatever it needs. And I happened to hit them all the first day, but they were just not. They were always going behind the pin. Like I've heard some talking about, when the pin goes out of the center and then on its way back in, your body almost kind of puts it in the middle, and your pin doesn't matter as much. But mine was just not doing that. Like I always used to be able to shoot, and no matter where the pin was at, it would hit pretty close to the middle. But it has not been happening for the last month. And I think it was like a combination of shots going slower, just not feeling the same control in the shot. And it may have to do with releases too. I actually, changed releases halfway through the tournament, which I'll ask you about that here in a little bit. But have you ever had anything like that? Are your groups smaller than your pin shake?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Well, I will say, so I think my Stratos is hanging up right over here. That bow, that's why I like it, is because my pin can be pretty much anywhere, but as long as I'm pushing toward the target and the shot feels decent and I'm just building that shot, it'll go in the middle no matter where that usually no matter where that pin is at. So absolutely, I know what you're talking about. It can be hard too because sometimes, in practice your hold is really good. Then you go to a tournament, you're like, oh man, it's just everywhere. It's hard to trust it. But once you do get that trust and your mind knows, okay, it doesn't have to be in the middle to go off, then that's really where you get the confidence.
Yeah, and you said the Stratus. How did you like that bow? Was that you like that bow?
I love that bow. Absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
Most people hated it. I never understood why because it just fits my shooting style so well. The limbs are more vertical, so they jumps toward the target, which really fits my shooting style. I build a bunch of pressure. I think I have like 22 or 23 pounds of holding weight, and that my front arm, I pretty much shoot with my front arm. I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it breaks. Most people have more of a static shot, so I don't think they got along with the Stratos. But yeah, the Stratos is really forgiven for my shot, and it's just predictable. I can trust it under pressure.
Yeah, that's good to know. Like you said, there's a lot of people that didn't necessarily like that bow, but that's good to hear that you liked it. What do you think of the Concept X?
So first of all, I think it's a great bow. Obviously it just won Vegas. Mike won it with Vegas. And there's so many people that I've talked to that just absolutely love it. I just couldn't get used to it. I couldn't get repeatability out of it. I couldn't get a good feel out of it. And the biggest part was I could not trust that thing under pressure. I know my first couple ASA shoot downs, I had it in my hand and I shot the Stratos all before that. So, I was used to nerves. I expected to be shaking like crazy out there, but I knew if I just kept building and building, it would go where I was aiming ultimately. But then when I got there with the Concept, it was not like that at all. And that kind of shook my confidence a little bit. But I put my heart and soul into that Concept this summer. And while I did shoot some decent scores with it, I could not get it to feel right or group good. It was just always random. And I think that had to do with having like the parallel limbs opposed to the vertical. Is when my shot goes off, my front arm is really going toward that target. It's a really strong shot. But with the Concept, the bow's not going toward the target, it's going up. So I think that just goes against my shot and doesn't get the accuracy that I want.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I switched from a PSE to the Concept, and the PSE was like you were saying, more vertical limbs, and it would jump out of your hand a little bit more. But I actually got along really well with the Concept, and I'm still shooting it. But have you shot any tournaments with it?
Yeah, I've shot several tournaments with the Concept. I haven't shot any indoor ones, but I've shot field nationals and I shot several ASAs. And I did like at the classic last year, I shot like 40 up with it or something for the weekend. So obviously I could shoot it well, but it was just like that one weekend I had one high moment with that bow, but I just couldn't it's for me it's really touchy. And again, it's an incredible bow. Most people I talk to absolutely love it, especially more static shooters. That's their best friend, but it just didn't get along with me.
Yeah, that's good to know. But so you took the Stratus to Vegas this year?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and that shot well for you. I know. So let's talk about scores. What did you end up with at Vegas? How'd your weekend go?
So I ended up with an 898. I don't remember my X count. I know the first day it was horrible, but then I was like, wait a second. My pin was doing some weird floating stuff the first day. And I just set this other Stratos up. So this is actually my first tournament with my new Stratos. So I noticed my pin was doing some weird stuff. And I was like, wait a second. I need to drop my weight down even further. It was really low, but then I dropped it down even further. And then I ended up the second day with a 325X, I believe. So that really helped. Of course, the last day, my shot wasn't feeling good. I dropped two. Not much you can do about that.
Okay, so that's kind of what I want to drill into, and of course, I dropped a couple too at Vegas this year. I was kind of in the same boat as you, two 300s, and then just an off day. But what I know I've thought about it a lot. I did kind of a lot of a really good self reflection. I'd say the night after I shot or missed those tens, and I really kind of came up with an explanation as to why that I think will help me prevent that from happening in the future. What causes that miss? Is it the pressure? Is it bow setup? Is it the lighting? Like, what variable there do you think changed?
So for me, at least, I've been struggling a ton with it just getting my release to go off. I've been hanging up really bad, so I've been working through that for the last several months now. So that's just all it was. Well, first, my first shot, it just broke low. I was holding a little long and I was fighting that all weekend, but it just broke low. The second one I missed, I think it just went off a little fast and just hit a little bit low and left. So, but again, I know exactly what it was. It was just my timing. My brain just will not let me finish the shot. Like it just wants to hang up and wait for circumstances to get perfect, which they rarely do. So that's been frustrating. But yeah, that's what caused me to miss.
Okay, and you said your release is kind of slow, and this is something that I messed with a little bit in the middle of the tournament, which I never do, by the way. Like this might have been my first time. But what release are you shooting?
I'm shooting the Carter Wise choice.
Okay, and that's a thumb button, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I shoot a thumb button too, and I think one of the main reasons why I was getting, my groups were as big as my pin shake, right? So I'm shaking a lot and I'm hitting all over the place too. Still making a great surprise shot, but they just weren't like getting in there, like you say. I guess how that should happen, how it's happened in the past, is you can shake all over the place, but it still goes somewhat in the middle. It has not been happening for me for the last couple months, and I think one thing I learned actually at Vegas was that the tension on my release was too high. So I shoot this right here. This is a Carter 2 special. And I had the tension set like insanely high. Like I made some modifications to it and everything. And it was shooting good, but I think it was kind of giving me a reaction like a hinge. I'm not sure if you ever shot a hinge before, but I've never really got along with a hinge. What's your thoughts on?
So I shot a hinge for a while, especially when I first started. When I was in elementary, I shot a thumb at first, but then I got like horrible target panic. I started punching it real bad. So my dad put me in a back tension, and or a back tension. We call it back tension to hinge, the same thing. I shot it really well. I won my first national championship with it. I won several titles with it. But then as I progressed through archery, especially indoor, I noticed that, well, again, I would hang up super, super bad. So I transitioned back to a thumb and I shot it incredibly well. Like it was so forgiving, really fit my shot style. But again, I like to shoot a resistance, or not a resistance, a hinge, because it does feel good. It gets your body used to that movement, but under pressure, it's a complete disaster.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I feel like when I shoot a hinge, it's, if you start on one end of the spectrum, you've got a resistance release. For me, I feel like it's super easy to control and great for like training, getting the fundamentals down, and even going back and tuning them at incremental points throughout your season. And then you've kind of got a back tension, which is a little bit, I mean, slightly harder to control, but I think it's a little bit more accurate. I think you see a lot more of that in competition. And then you go even a step farther and you've got a thumb button. And I think that is the hardest to control, right? You said you got a little bit of target panic when you started with that, but I think it can be a little bit more accurate too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that leads me back to what I changed. So I actually went from, and how I activate how do you activate your release,
Just
your
pull into
thumb?
it.
Pull
Yep.
into it.
Just, yep.
Okay, so that's what I've done for a long time. That's what I've always done is just like straight pull. I hear a lot of guys talk about rotating the release and stuff like that. For me, I've always just pulled, like hooked my thumb around it like this and pulled it straight back. And I found that I had the tension so high and all I was doing was pulling that it was almost acting like a resistance release, I think.
Hmm.
Like if that makes sense. And I was just not getting that accuracy, right? Like my pin jiggle was more than or my groups were the same size as the pin shake. And then I lightened it up and got a little bit better results, a lot better results actually that third day. But what's your trigger tension at, and why'd you set it there?
So right now, it's actually set pretty cold. I've had it set light before. So actually, at the beginning of the year, I had it set really light, but then I noticed that my thumb got so scared to even just touch it that everything was locking up even worse. So then I was like, when I noticed, I was like, okay, that's horrible. I cannot have it set that light because now it's my thumb is scared to even touch it. So I made it really, really cold. That way, my body could just pull into it, really get in a groove, not even worry about it. And that helped quite a bit. So I usually keep my release set either in like the middle or the colder side. So I usually don't get it set super hot. I know some people that do and they shoot it well, but I think that's inviting a lot of problems.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And that kind of leads me to some stuff I've been reading. I remember I listened to your podcast that you did with Greg Poole last year before I hopped on this, and you said something about a couple different books you read, like on the mental game, and one of them kind of stood out. Ride Big, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so and it's kind of wild for anybody listening, but it's a book about the mental game of equestrian sport, and I'm probably a third of the way into it now, and it's a really great book. Like, how did that affect your shooting, the equestrian sport mental game?
So I read that book last year before indoor season. I believe my mom had it just on hand, and of course I started reading it, and at first I was a little skeptical. I was like, okay, how in the world is equestrian sports going to relate to archery? But as I read through it, I was like, oh my gosh, all this stuff really does make sense. And it's been a while since I've read it. I made a bunch of notes on it, so I definitely need to go back and read those. Um, it highlighted a lot of the thoughts that go through your mind that are both healthy and unhealthy, so just identifying those was very, very helpful for me, and just to know too that other people go through the exact same thing. I'm not unique, I'm not, alone up there on the line. Everybody's going through those situations, but just identifying those positive and negative mindsets was super helpful.
Absolutely. And did it change your pod or your process at all?
As far as process goes, not really. I've always tried to keep, like, a good mental game, like, I've never really allowed myself to spiral downwards too far. I'm usually good at catching myself, but it did make me a lot more aware of what thoughts were going through my mind and then shutting down the negative ones immediately, that way I didn't go even farther down and create a worse shot.
Yeah, okay. So what actually is your process as you're shooting? Like pre-shot, post-shot, anything like that?
It kind of depends. If I'm in practice versus competition, it's a little different. I find in competition, my body is super, super focused, just on the aim, and it's very aware of everything that's going on, like in my process, not necessarily the surroundings. But I've tried sometimes saying different words, but that does not help at all. I feel like that gets in the way. I know some people that do talk to themselves while they're shooting, and they do it really, really well, and it works for them. Doesn't work for me. So I concentrate on the feel of the shot. So yeah, just get back there, draw back, get settled, pool, relax, and just focus on the feel of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually tried that, or I heard of it from somebody said, focus on the feel versus the voice in your head or the pin shake, and that really is something good to try out. It's an interesting feeling, or it's an interesting thing to think about. I think it's very effective. I'd say that's my opinion on it. But so, what about? I mean, you said it's different from practice to competition, and that's kind of contradictory, I'd say, to what a lot of people teach. How does it change exactly?
So it's different and the same. So in practice, sometimes I work on a very specific area. I might, if I'm, for example, if I'm having problem holding, I may just solely concentrate on the hold instead of the feel, or my release hand or something like that. So then when I get to a competition, I'm not going to focus on that one specific area unless it's like really, really bad. I'm just going to kind of think of it as the whole. So the feel, just make sure everything's going well. So that's kind of the main difference between practice and competition is just sometimes in practice, I'll work on an area that needs work or try to improve a specific area. Whereas in competition, you're just going off the feel pretty much.
Okay. And in competition, are you feeling a specific like back muscle contracting, or are you feeling your release in your hand? Like what exactly do you try to focus on? Or is it just,
Ooh, that's a good one. So I don't concentrate on moving, maybe I should, but I feel like any sort of like thinking about movement just freaks me out and makes me lock up even more. Usually like my conscious mind is focused on the aim, and then I just kind of look out for red flags if that makes any sense. So if there's a voice in your head, hey, you've been up here way too long, you should let down, I try to listen to that. Or if something says, hey, this part is way too tight, listen to that, fix that. So it's not necessarily a focus on one particular thing other than the hold. I do try to kind of work on the hold, not like an aggressive hold, but a very light, soft eyes hold, and just focus on that and let everything else take care of itself.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. So you say you focus on the target with your conscious mind. I think that I do that more in 3D than I do in indoor. But what are you focusing on for indoor? Are you focusing on your pin or your dot, or are you focusing on the target?
Mostly Okay, so indoor and 3D is a little different. So 3D, it's mostly just the pin because sometimes my mind or I can't really see the spot on the 3D target. So I'll just really focus on that aim where the pin is. But indoor, I think I'm kind of like you. I'm more focused on the target and just kind of let the pin do whatever it wants.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. So one thing that I've tried is to I like to call it 1,000-yard stare. So I'll put like 1,000-yard stare on the target, and I'm kind of looking past the pin, looking past the target, and seeing like I'm even looking out to the blue ring, which this leads me to another thing about your lens. I've tried focusing on like the outside of the blue of the target and centering my big dot that I have in there in that. And that kind of seems to help a little bit. It's a little bit broader. But you're shooting is it an 8 power, what I
Yeah,
heard?
8 power.
So I shot an 8 power for years, and it's not very often you come across an 8 power person, but that's kind of what I started out with. And I shot it all the way up until this season. But my 8 power, like I could see, I don't even know if I could see the blue ring. Like it was that tight in there. How tight is your 8 power?
I'd have to concentrate on that. I don't like if I'm aiming at a specific spot, I can't see past that whole spot. That's for sure. I think I shoot like a 30 millimeter scope or something like that. So it's small, but yeah, I definitely can't see a whole lot of the target.
Yeah. Now I've done this, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are guilty of it. But with an 8 power, I have shot the wrong target. Like I think that's a big fear for a lot of people. Have you ever done that?
I have shot the wrong target before once in like a league, but it wasn't because the 8x scope, it was just because I aimed at the wrong one. But I remember when I did switch over, I had to be very careful with how I aimed. I noticed that I went from a 6 to an 8 for indoors. And I had to be really careful with how I brought that bow down on the target. I actually had to look at the target as my scope is coming down. So I had to get used to that, but now that's just natural. Don't even have to think about it. But yeah, at first that definitely was a concern, but now it's not anymore.
Yeah. That's yeah, I think I kind of got used to it there for a while, and you almost don't think about it. But is that something that you'd recommend to other people, like over a 6 power?
I think it all depends on your shooting style. Like for me, since I'm a field shooter, it really helps because I know exactly where my pin is and exactly what my bow is doing. So that is really helpful. I know my scores definitely improved when I switched over to an 8. But if you're more of a static shooter and you need a really still pin float, I don't think an 8 would be that great.
Yeah, that's good to think about. Have you tried anything differently since you switched to an 8?
So I shoot a 7 for 3D. I like that. In fact, in this next couple weeks, I'm going to experiment with an 8 3D, see if I can get enough light. Of course, before I shot a 6X for a long, long time. Indoors, 3D, pretty much for everything. I shot it well, but again, I shot better scores with an 8X. I don't think I've tried anything else. I bought a 10 just for fun the other year and put it in, but I could not get it to clear up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that. So, back up a second. You said 7 power for 3D?
Yes.
That's pretty high. Like I don't know, my eyes don't see very good in the dark, and when I put in anything bigger than a 5 on 3D, I'm just like staring at a black hole.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. What size peep are you running?
That's a good question. I know I run a specialty in like the apertures in the middle, so it's
Okay.
not
Yeah.
not super low, not super big. But yeah, the 7X I really like. It gives me just enough clarity, just enough magnification that I can really see where I'm aiming, but it's not so much that it blocks everything out or like a 4 or a 6 I feel like is like you don't know where you're aiming.
Yeah. How's like the field of view on that? Are you still able to see the body lines on targets and stuff
Mm,
like that?
yeah. Yeah, surprisingly I am. So, yeah, again, I feel like it's just like a 6, but little I can get the same clarity out of a 6 as I can the 7, it's just a little bit more magnification. I run my sight all the way out, so if you run your sight in a 6 and a 7, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. But yeah, I can see very well with the 7.
That's good to
But
know. So, go ahead.
but I also have really good eyes, so that might not
Yeah.
be fair.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But yeah, that's good. Um For me, I just got back from Vegas, right? And it's kind of outdoor season. I think everybody's switching. Everybody's talking outdoor. And I think over the next month, I'm going to be hitting 3D just about every weekend. And that's what I did the summer of 24. I had a lot of 3D, and I got pretty decent at it. I remember last year I went to Metropolis, and I might have shot one 3D shoot like a month prior to practice, and I showed up at Metropolis and like totally forgot how to shoot 3D. So I'm gonna need to like really lock in over these next few weeks and try to remember how to shoot 3D. But what's your strategy? So first of all, you've got some ASA wins under your belt, right?
Yeah, well, just that one professional ASA win, then I have some amateur wins as well.
Yeah, okay. So you know what you're doing. What is I mean, what's the strategy? Start me off from the beginning. Walk up to the stake and it's a 43-yard hyena.
All right, here we go. So in the pro division, I go for every 12. Now, it depends how aggressively I go for it, but I don't walk up to a target and say, oh, I'm just going to go for a 10. I'm always going for a 12. I'm an upper 12 shooter. So unless there's like 4 or 5 arrows jammed in that top 12, I'm going to be going for upper.
Why
So,
why upper?
because I just shoot it better. So I've always done this. I hold my pin below the spot. I've always done that, and it's just naturally where it goes. I look at the spot and shoot, but my pin is always below it. So I find that if I try to go for lower, it always hits high, no matter how I try to shoot it. I have tried putting my pin in the middle, taking like a yard or so off, but that kind of bothers me. But I just always seem to shoot uppers way better than lowers. All right, so walk up to the stake. Of course, big one on glassing. I'm constantly glassing that target to figure out where all my rings are. If it's 40, what'd you say, 43 yards?
Yeah.
Okay, so with my 7X, I'm probably gonna be able to see the rings pretty well, unless it's dark. Pick out a spot, figure out where all my dark spots are compared to all the rings on the body.
Do you know the targets? How well do you know the targets? Are you able to practice on them every day, or are you just kind of feeling it out week by week?
So we do have a few targets we practice on, but I don't memorize the spots at all. I probably should. I know some people that do. They know exactly where that 12 is in relation to that animal, but I haven't put the time into that yet. Just because sometimes you get back there and the dots are a little different, or the animal's faced a different way, and I'd just rather go up there, glass it, figure out where exactly that spot is in the moment, rather than kind of guessing.
Okay. And when you're glassing the target, you don't know what size your binos are, do you?
Maybe 16s,
Are
maybe.
they aren't the SIGs, are they? The
Yeah, they're the six.
stabilize. Oh, okay. Okay. So that makes it big. So, okay, so you can see everything with those,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
so that's good. Okay, so you're looking at where the 12 ring is in comparison to the different spots you said, like on the hyena, and then what? Once you find out where that 12 is, do you step up onto the stake then, or is this all while you're back behind the stake?
So usually, of course, you go up and get your range right before, dial in my sight, make sure that's really good. Then other people are shooting, I'm glassing. Then as soon as I step up to that stake, I glass again, double check my sight again because I have misset it before. I don't want that to happen again. And then right before I draw back, look one more time, make sure I got that spot, then draw back, and then find that particular spot or area, and then just soft eyes, really work on a good hold and executing a good shot.
Okay, what do you mean by soft eyes? I've heard you say that a couple times.
So you're not super focused on one particular spot. Your mind knows where the spot you're aiming at is. So if you're really concentrating on that one spot, like super hard, you're really straining your body to look at that, then everything's going to get tense. But if you have soft eyes, your body's going to relax. It's just naturally going to feel a lot better, and your eye will naturally draw you to that spot.
I really like that. I'm going to write that down. Okay, so soft eyes when you're aiming. Now, sometimes I'll get to a target and I remember specifically this was a black target a couple years ago, and there was 3 arrows already in the target, and the 12 rings in the middle, and there's an arrow on either side of it, or maybe it'll be like 2 arrows beside it, or an arrow on either side. When you're aiming off of other arrows or spots on the target, what's your strategy there? Are you clicking your sight? Are you aiming off?
Oh, I usually try not to click my sight because I'm afraid I'll forget to switch it back. But that's hard. I mean, again, like you said, I mean, your eyes are so drawn to those arrows that they can easily deflect. Heck, I think you make worse shots when there's arrows in the target just because your mind, I don't know if it's so concentrated on aiming that I don't know what it is. But when there's different arrows, again, I figure out where that 12 is in relation to those arrows. And then I just put my pin well, again, I aim below the spot. And then just try to really have just a nice soft eyes, especially in that instance, because your eyes will want to draw your
Mhm.
draw you to those arrows. Just focus on a good shot right toward that middle spot. But again, when there's arrows in the target, that's hard.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another one. I've gone up to black targets, and sometimes like it'll be a dark, overcast day, whatever it is, and I cannot see the rings, and it is just a black hole. What's your strategy there? You going off the body line, or what are you thinking?
Depends how far away it is. If it's close and like you said, it's dark and you can't see anything, I just find the shoulder, find the top, find the belly of the animal, and then just glass to see where that 10 ring is in relation to that and hope you get near the middle. But yeah, that's tough. I usually, again, either go by the outline of the 3D animal or if I can find like a shoulder and different parts like that, I'll do my best to go off of that. But that's hard. You're aiming at a
Yeah.
black trash bag out there. That's hard.
Yeah. And do you run into that much at nationals, ASA nationals?
Not as much. Again, like you said, dark days are hard, or when the sun is shining towards you when you're shooting. I know we had that the last one a lot. I see. I'm trying to think. Most of those targets I didn't go first, so that was nice. I had some other arrows to look at and kind of know where I was at on that.
So there's
But
where a little bit of luck comes into play there
yes,
too.
absolutely. You definitely don't want to be first on the black targets, but yeah, just figure out where that shoulder is. Usually you can see the shoulder when you draw back. So I just try to find that and then figure out where the 10 is in relation to that.
Okay, yeah. So I remember one thing I was doing a lot a couple years ago was I'd go up to a target and I'd range it. And if I'm going lower 12, like I've got a group, I know how many yards. If the target's a 40-yard target, then my group is going to be, this big or whatever the size is. And I always want to aim at kind of the center of the 12, but I always give it, a half yard to where, on the bottom 12, I'm going to hit the top of, or maybe the top half of that 12 ring. And then, on the top, I'm going to hit the bottom half of the 12 ring, trying to stay away from the eights. Do you ever do that? Do you ever click your sight off at all, or are you always aiming right on?
No, no, no. If it's a far target, I'll definitely aim more toward the middle than right at it. In fact, again, like I said, my aiming style is a little different. I always aim below the 12s, which actually helps me in 3D because I don't have to worry about aiming right at the spot. But oh yeah, if it's a 51-yard javelina, I'm not gonna aim right at the 12. That'd be silly. I'm gonna aim right below it or in the middle to give myself
Okay.
some space for air.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And that's, but you're not clicking your sight. Like you've always got your arrow hitting right behind your pin.
So my arrow pretty much never hits right behind my pin because the
Or,
Stratos always like hits above. I will say I actually used to like aim at the middle and give myself like a yard and a half or a yard depending on how far the target was. And that actually worked really well. I haven't tried that this year just because I haven't shot a ton of 3D targets, but that is something I'd do. Or if there's like a really big black hole right below the 12, I'll aim for that black hole, give it like a yard or so. That way it rises up.
okay, yeah. And then, okay, so going back to stepping up to the stake, what's your process? Do you have like a look at the target 2 times, then look at it with your bare eyes and, knock your arrow at a certain point? Like, do you have a certain process there?
So let's see. I have to think about that. I do walk up to the stake. I usually double check my range. Just make sure my sight's on. I'm kind of obsessed about that.
Yep.
And then I glass it, then kind of lower my binoculars, and then just kind of see what I can see with my natural eyes on that target. What stands out? Is there a dark spot? Is there a light spot? Where's that shoulder at? And then I raise up my binoculars again, look, just really get a lay of the land, and then draw back and fire.
Okay, yeah. And do you have a favorite target?
Oh, I really like the bobcat. That's probably my favorite. Bobcat and
Really?
deer.
Okay, why is that? Can you see it easier?
Yeah, there's like that line right behind the shoulder that goes right through the upper 12. I also like there's this deer looking thing. It has like two different colors. It's white on the bottom and brown on the top. You could probably tell me what that one was.
Yeah.
But that upper 12 is right above that white line, so I really like that one too.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember maybe black buck, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so going into 3D, I mean, what do you recommend for practice? Like I have got I'm looking at it right now, one old Mackenzie pronghorn. And so it's like I really don't have any 3D targets, which I need to get some. But what do you recommend for practice? Like are you sighting in on Vegas face? Are you sighting in on I've seen some people use like X's and lines. What's your process there?
Usually just sight in. I have like different targets that have just black spots on them, you know. So I get there. I try not to aim at some. I don't like aiming at something super super small, just because on a 3D target you're not gonna have a defined like little spot to aim at usually. So I usually give myself, you know, about the size of my fist to spot, or if I'm closer, you know, it'll be a little smaller. But I always sight in on those and just get my sight type exactly on the bags. And then I move out to 3D targets. But again, every session I go out and practice 3D, I'm always warming up on the bags, making sure my groups are decent, making sure my shots rolling. And then I might shoot 20, 30 animals just because targets are super expensive. And if your shot's not going well, why shoot a 3D animal when you could be shooting bags?
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you're warming up on the bags, and one thing, as soon as you say bags, I think of the white bags. I think it's Morel makes some that I've used before. And you go out in the broad daylight, and they are just like screaming bright. And I always shot a blue pin for 3D, and it
Yeah.
always like disappeared. What color pin do you shoot?
Blue. Yeah, I have that same problem sometimes, especially on those bright targets. It is almost impossible to see.
Yeah, and do you ever get that on 3D targets? Like, do they use any of the white targets at ASA Nationals, like the 3D targets?
I don't think so. I mean, I will say that like, the mountain lion's pretty light, but usually they're in the woods or something, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I've tried shooting different other color pins, like a green and stuff like that, but the green starbursts so bad, but the blue it really does well for me. Again, it disappears on the practice bag sometimes, but it does well on the 3D targets.
How about red? Have you ever shot red?
Never shot a red. Have you?
I've not. I've always shot blue for, I mean, just about everything. When I do shoot a pin, I shoot a dot for indoor. But I was told to try red this summer for field archery. Actually, I'm gonna try some field out, and actually they've got I think it's Field Nationals in Yankton, South
Yeah.
Dakota this year. So I'm gonna go
Uh-huh.
out to that. But I was told to use a red pin for that, and I guess it works for 3D too. So I'm gonna try it out. And another thing I've always done was 10,000ths pin. I've never run anything bigger than 10,000ths. What about you?
I think I run a 15,000s right now. Of course, on my indoor and target archer, I run a really, really big one. But yeah, it's not very big.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm excited to kind of try it out. I just got a new site at Vegas. I picked up a bunch of stuff, and I'll be trying it out. And actually, by the time this podcast released, I just got another bow, which I've always been a one bow show. Like it has been kind of difficult switching from 3D to Vegas. Like I saw you were shooting at, what was the last ASA? Was it Fort Benning?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Was that's not the one that you were in the shoot down, was it? Foley?
So yeah, Foley, I didn't make the shoot down at Foley. I made it at the Fort Benning.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I see you guys out there shooting 3D, and I'm like, I'm still shooting spots. What is up with this? So, I finally got a second bow, second setup, and so I'll be a lot better prepared for the transition this
All
year.
right. Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm going to try and set up a bow for 3D. I assume you have multiple bow setups.
Yeah, so I just got another Stratus. I think I got that at Lancaster from a girl. So I set that one up for indoor. It's the one here behind me. I think I'm gonna set it up now that indoor is done. I'm gonna set it up for target archery, and then I have a bow or a Stratos set up for 3D.
Okay, so sounds like you shoot kind of a broad range of disciplines. What all do you shoot?
So of course indoor 3D. I like to shoot field nationals. That's probably one of my favorite tournaments. It's just a lot of fun. And
And
then
that's
USA.
that's in Yankton, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm not
Okay,
quite sure if we're gonna go to that this year, but definitely like to. It's a fun one.
yeah.
Let's see what else. USA Target. We've done Mark 3D before. Mark 3D is probably my least favorite. Not a huge fan of that. And I think that's it.
Yeah. So I'm new to having two setups. I mean, are you trying to set them up the exact same? Or are you making one a little bit different than the other as far as like stabilizer setups and stuff like that? How do you compare your different setups?
So my Stratus is I pretty much shoot the same setup no matter what I'm doing. I always have like 5 ounces on the front, 8 on the back, or something similar to that. So they're usually set up pretty much the same. Of course, the sights are going to be different depending on what you're doing. For USA archery stuff, you're not really worried about a sight tape, but for 3D, of course, you're going to want that exactly on. So yeah, last year I had my concepts. I had one setup for 3D, one setup for field. I think they were similar. I think I had more weight on one of them than the other. But yeah, I usually set up mine pretty much the same, other than like pin and fiber diameter, sight tapes, that kind of stuff. Yeah, they're usually about the same.
Yeah, okay. And when you're setting them up, like the biggest thing that's running through my mind before I set this second bow up is that the poundage is not going to be exactly right, the draw length's not going to be the same, peep height, stuff like that. Are you taking measurements off the old bow and trying to get it to match, or what are you doing there?
So a lot of times, yes, but when you get like a new pair of strings or something, they're going to be a little tighter. They're not going to be as stretched as your old ones. And the same thing with like peep heights and stuff like, or knock heights. That's going to affect how far your peep is away from that knock. So yeah, I do try to make measurements as close as possible, but sometimes things are going to be a little different. So if you draw back and they are exactly the same, but one feels a little different, I'm going to move it. So I'm not going to be afraid to do that just because it's not the same as the other one. But it is a little bit tricky just because, again, the knock height's going to be a little different depending on which bow you're setting up, maybe. So that's going to affect the peep height, stuff like that.
Where do you run your knock height on your Stratus?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm not real sure.
And I asked because I've kind of played with it a good bit on this concept, and believe it or not, like my PSE, I was running it way over top the burger hole. Like I was really high, and that's just kind of what it took to get it to hold well. I found that the concept is not really the same, but I need to play with it a little bit more and see what I can find on the Hoyts as far as trying to get them to, I guess, hold the best is probably the main reason why people move knock height, but that's something I have to experiment with.
Yeah, I think when we tune our rests, of course, we always want that arrow either even with the burger hole or just above it. So that's usually where I set my bows up at. So that it's worked so far. I really haven't played around with it a whole lot though, but I've heard the Stratos is like it just a little bit high.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, arrow setup is obviously different between the bow setups. What are you running for 3D this year?
3D, I got the PS25s going, the Black Eagles. Love those arrows. They're very durable. They fly really well for me. Right now, I'm shooting Bonning fletchings. I think I'm going to switch over to some Flex Fletch just to try something new. We got those at Vegas, so I look forward to trying those out. Trying to think of what else. I think I run like 100 grains, 120 grains in the front, so not a ton, but enough to group good. I know I'm going to try some more weight on my field and target arrows just because I know they're too light right now and I want to try to get some better groups. But yeah, as far as 3D, Black Eagle PS25s are awesome. Super happy with them.
Yeah. Why 25s? I've heard people 23, 25, 27 even. And I've actually I don't think I've ever shot anything bigger than a 5 millimeter for 3D, believe it or not. Like I've always been the skinny arrow guy.
Yeah.
But I am switching to bigger arrows this summer. But why'd you choose 25 over the other sizes?
So, of course, 27 and the Black Eagle arrows, I feel is just way too big. Those arrows, since they're durable, they're a little bit more thick, so they're going to be a little more heavy. I just didn't feel like I quite got the groups with them that I wanted to. Plus, I didn't want it so big that it would really cause a lot of deflection off of other arrows. I shot 20s before and I shot them well, but I just wanted a little bit more diameter and the I was like they're a lighter arrow, so I don't get like so they're very accurate, of course. So I like the bigger diameter with and they fly really well. So why not go a little bit bigger?
Yeah, makes sense. I like it. I think I'm gonna have to try out some different sizes and see what works for me. It's gonna be a big change just going from the skinnies. But did you ever see like a difference in wind drift in the different sizes, 23 through 27s?
So I haven't shot a 3D tournament where there has been any wind. If there has been, it's just been very, very minuscule. So I really haven't noticed it. No. Well, actually, I will say in one shoot down, there was a little bit of wind and it did make a difference, but I don't think it made any more of a difference than anybody else out there on the field.
Yeah, that's good to know because I guess I've always kind of been worried about the wind shooting outside, but I practice kind of in an open area, so it's just going to be more windy in my practice versus in the woods on 3D course. But yeah, that's good to know. So, kind of moving on here, I've got another question written down for you, and this is going to be for me. I kind of went through a lot of the people at Vegas, the people that know what they're talking about, trying to get a kind of direction on my archery career and interlacing that with school and stuff like that. And I know that, me and Dad have talked to you and your parents about kind of how you're balancing college and archery and stuff. What's your schedule right now as far as practice and still keeping up with school and stuff like that?
So right now I'm taking 12 hours. Of course, that's online school. So not a ton, but still a full-time load. As far as tournaments go, like a lot of these tournaments you have to leave on like a Wednesday or something. So that's half the week and you really don't get a chance to do any studying on the road. You get to do a little bit, but not much. So a lot of these weeks, sometimes I'll spend the entire week just getting as much schoolwork as I can done so I can have that time off. But for like average weeks, start studying 8, 9 o'clock. Then I go to about 5 or 6. Then the rest of the evenings I have off. I can either shoot my bow for a couple hours or ride, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's hard, but with taking 12 hours and taking it online, it's super flexible. So it allows me to travel to all these tournaments and shoot my bow, practice, have a little bit of time off to do that. So yeah, it's challenging. I definitely don't get to shoot near as much as I'd like to, which if I had a choice, I could probably shoot hours and hours and hours a day, but not really practical.
Yeah, that makes sense. And has that changed at all, going from high school to college?
But yeah, yeah, for sure. I was high schooled. I was homeschooled pretty much my whole life. And so going from that to online college, especially like online college was difficult, especially for the first several months. I was not able to get pretty much anything done except schoolwork. So that was hard just making that transition online. My professors have been excellent. They've always answered all my questions, but it can always takes a little bit longer to learn stuff sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just this past week, because I just go to like a public high school, and actually my school's really good. Like we've got a great ag department, one of the best in the state. It's like, especially the ag department, like it's the type of people that you want to be around. And like we have an FFA trap shoot through the high school, and we'll do that. Like there's just all kinds of cool events. But for Vegas, like I missed Wednesday through the following Monday for Vegas, and I'm taking like some CCP college stuff through the high school. So like that type of work, you still have to stick to the due dates. So trying to get all that done plus being on the road is definitely something I need to um, learn how to balance a little bit better. Takes up a lot of time. Kind of like you, I wish I could shoot more, but I just have not been able to make time for it yet. But 12 hours, is that, you said that's what you're doing for college?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I was going to take 15 hours these last 2 semesters, but with all the archery tournaments coming up, I was like, okay, that's too much. And most of the classes are 8-week courses instead of 16 weeks. So there's a lot of information jam packed into those weeks. So, but the good thing is I usually take like 3 classes the first half of the term and then 2 classes the other half. Again, most of those classes like taking 4 or 5 at a time just because there's so much information jam packed. But yeah, 12 hours has given me enough time to have time to shoot, have time to ride horses. Of course, you're not going to have a ton of time. I might have 2 or 3 hours open in the evening, but that's enough to get out and do some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you going to college for archery?
No, 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 no. I'm a accounting major right now. It's through Cedarville University. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. But they just opened up the online program. It's really awesome. Really enjoyed it so far. It's been a godsend for sure. But no, I've kind of looked at some art or universities that have archery teams, but that's just not really something I'm interested in right now.
Yeah, that's good to know. And as far as that goes, obviously you're shooting the pro class too, which is like in my mind that's a little bit bigger time commitment than, just amateur classes. But I remember I think one of the first things we talked about at the Midwest Open or one of those a couple years ago, I asked, "What's your opinion on going from amateur to pro? Like when do you make that switch?" And I'll ask it again. What's your opinion on that?
So going from that amateur switch to the professional, of course, that's a huge jump. And I was a little bit unique in that I finished out like my last year of high school, so I was still in like a youth class or young adult, whatever you want to call it. And then I immediately went to the pro. Just because my scores were good enough, I knew I could compete. I knew I wasn't gonna quite get the competition in the amateur. Of course, there's excellent shooters in the amateur division, but if I really wanted to push myself and get better, I needed to make that jump up to the pro, and I was capable of winning. But I'd just say if you're shooting the amateur, you're just dominating. Obviously, that's kind of unfair to the other competitors. You need to go up to the pro, push yourself, and be shooting against archers that are more your talent. But if you're And it also depends, like, why you do archery. If you're doing it just to have fun, just to go out and meet people, okay, maybe joining the pro class and paying outrageous fees for shooting, maybe that might not be your thing. But if you're really wanting to push yourself and to see what you're capable of, then making the jump up to the pro division is definitely an option.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I guess that stands true for, people that are my age about ready to get kicked out of the young adult class and people that are, 40 and still and shooting good in the regular amateur classes. But yeah, that's some good insight. I think that I've heard from a lot of people that, I should get some wins under my belt in the young adult class. I've heard a lot of people kind of warn against going pro before I turn 18, but what's your opinion on that? Did you shoot any pro before you were 18?
Yeah, the tournaments that would allow me to shoot pro, I knew I shot like the Hoosier 690 as a pro before. I think I was like 16 or 17. But again, it was just because they allowed you to, and I knew I was good enough to compete at that level. But yeah, I probably wouldn't suggest to others going pro before that time just because I mean, the pro division is so good at this point and you have to shoot amazing not just to win, but just to get in the shoot down to have a position to win. So that can be at the same time exciting, but it can be discouraging when you go out there shoot really well but you drop one. Well, now you're not even in the race anymore. So it can definitely be a like a hindrance. It can be very frustrating when you're out of the position. I mean, I know going from young adult to pro, you go from young adult where you can drop, 2 or 3 at nationals and still be okay, and you go to professional division and you drop one and you're completely out. So it can be stressful, but it's also good to push your limits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some great stuff. I'm gonna have to get a good plan together, and I think that's gonna help me a lot. But yeah, so moving forward, what's the next big shoot?
So we're going to the USAT in Florida. I think it's called like the Gator Cup. So that's in a few weeks. So we're gonna get all set up for that. Need to get my bow set up, get out there. I ordered some arrows from Lancaster the other day, so I'm looking forward to getting those sighted in, waiting for them to come in first. But yeah, it's always fun to shoot 50 meters after indoors, just because you get to be outside, enjoy the weather, and it's pretty cool. A little bit of a mental reprieve for sure. And after USA, after the USAT, I think we're gonna hit the rest of the ASAs and then the rest of the USA archery tournament. So it'll be a lot of traveling, but it'll be fun.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I'm gonna hit a lot of the USA this summer too. I did hit one USAT, the Buckeye Classic, which is only an hour from my house.
Nice.
So I'm gonna hit some more USATs this summer. Hit like the field shoot up in the Dakotas. I think it'll be a fun summer. I really out of the 150-meter shoot I've done, I think I really enjoyed it. It's definitely something I look forward to getting into. And then until that first 50-meter shoot though, I'm gonna be hammering the 3D. I think that I'm pretty excited to get warmed back up on that. But yeah, so it's gonna be a fun summer. It's gonna be busy.
Absolutely. So do you have one bow set up for target and then one for 3D?
Yeah, so I think that my plan is to take my indoor bow and then set it up for 50 meters. 50 meters or field, I'd say. I'll just change. I'll go from like a dot to a pin, I think, between the two. But arrow setup will be the same. And then I think the other bow is going to be a 3D bow. So I'll put some, large diameters through that, large diameter arrows. And then my sight will be a little bit different. But yeah, that's my
Nice.
plan.
That's exciting. Don't have to
Yeah.
switch everything around every time you go out to shoot 3D or target or whatever. That'll be nice.
Yes, it's nice. And actually, I did become pretty good at making a speedy sight tape. I mean, it was like, it got to a point where it was a quick process. Yeah, it'll be nice to not have to do any of that anymore.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, it was good to talk to you, Grayson. Got some good information as always, and good luck on all your shoots this summer.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm sure we'll run into you at the next shoot. But yeah, until then, stay safe. Tell the family I said hi, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, I sure will. Thank you.
Thanks, Grayson.